Hello and welcome to this new course where we learn to create a prop from a concept we made previously. For this, we'll follow a series of steps where we'll first model all the necessary pieces to complete the prop in Maya, a polygonal modeling program. We'll then export all these pieces to ZBrush, and there we'll add some details and finish touching up our object so it's as close to the concept as possible. Maya, as I mentioned, is a polygonal modeling program. We can model objects in 3D, starting with geometric shapes and polygons using various tools that we'll see as we go along. To start, we'll make a cube with the tool on the top bar. By clicking on this tool, we achieve a perfect cube. Every angle is 90 degrees and all the faces measure exactly the same. This is important as this way we have a size reference for when we're making our object. To control the camera in Maya, we just need to hold down Alt and right-click to zoom. With the left click, rotate with the scroll wheel, we can pan. If you hit spacebar or click on the button on the left of the interface, the one that's like a grid, we'll get a grid in 4 different views. These views are the top, front and side of our object, and they are orthographic, meaning they have no perspective. They show us our model with no perspective, and that's ideal for placing vertices precisely. Now what we need to do is place the reference of our concept in all the views we have. So if the concept you're using has front, side and top views, we'll put our reference in each one of those views. We can hide the references in our perspective view so they don't bother us. To do that, go to the menu on the right, the Attributes Editor. Select the Looking Through Camera option. This option will only activate the reference on the view where we placed it. We place the reference on each view so we can block our object following all the views we have. We need to move our object through the viewport to fit our cube in the same point in all 3 views. We need to have one of the views as the main view and the rest should use this as a base. If you place the mouse over one of the 4 views and press the spacebar, this view will expand and we can work more comfortably on it. If we want to go back to the 4 views to change to a different one, or to work on all 4 at the same time, then just press the spacebar again. Now when we hold down the right click, we get a menu, and without letting go of the mouse, we'll select Face so we can select the faces of our cube and start to edit it. Now we'll carry on adjusting our cube to the reference. To do that, select the face that we're going to move. You can select this in orthographic view or perspective view, whatever is most comfortable. I'll use the orthographic view, so we just need to gradually adjust our cube to the reference in each view. As you can see, sometimes the views aren't placed properly, so first we need to use one of the views as a main reference and place the rest of the references according to that one. Now in the side view, we'll widen the book a little so we get that volume and size we see in the reference, and with that, we have our main shape. Select the Multicut tool. This tool lets you create edges, joining 2 points of 2 different edges or creating a loop of edges, which is a continuation of corners in a straight line going through all the faces in a line. To select any tool from the menu on our interface, we just need to hold down Ctrl-Shift and click on it with the scroll wheel on the mouse. If you hold down Ctrl on an edge with this tool, you can generate an edge loop. If you hold down Shift while doing the loop, we'll get a snap so we can center our edges. The edge will be divided into 10 different units so we can snap or fit it in perfectly, so we can place our loop exactly in the middle. We'll make 3 loops to fit the geometry in with the cuts of our reference. Now we'll select the vertices of the cube. To do that, simply right-click and from the menu that appears, select Vertex to select the vertices of the model and be able to edit them. Press R on the keyboard to activate the Scale tool and scale the vertices vertically to fit in better with the reference. Now let's adjust our model to the reference by adjusting the vertices and moving them to the size and the general shape as close as possible to the reference. It's never going to fit in perfectly in every one of the views, as the concept artist can't get it exactly right. That's why we need to focus on one view in particular and use that as a reference so we can follow it in case of doubt. Now we follow the same process, but with the side view of the model to adjust the edge of the book to the reference and carry on giving it the shape and size we need. If you observe the concept in perspective, notice how the spine of the book is slightly bent inwards. So we're going to replicate that in our perspective view, as this is harder to do in the orthographic view. Now we'll select the faces of our model that don't correspond with the covers of the book, and we'll delete them so they don't bother us. Once we've done that, our general shape is defined and we have the size and proportions we were looking for. Now we'll go to the first details of the book, the borders of the cover. Create another cube and generate 3 more loops on the new cube and again adjust it to the reference so it fits perfectly. This detail should be above the general volume and stick out. So adjust it perfectly so it's above our cover and delete the faces that don't correspond with the sides of the borders, as we're not going to need all this central area. Now we'll generate new faces on the edge. To do that, we're going to extrude. Extrude means to generate new faces from another face or edge. So select all the upper and lower edges of our border, and while pressing Shift, hold down the right click to get another menu. On this menu, select Extrude. We'll get a menu with lots of options. We need to select thickness and offset to adjust the border and make it a bit bigger. It's important that it goes over the general shape. It needs to be above it. By doing this, we generate additional faces for our model and start to add volume to the first details. Repeat the same action to push the faces inwards and make the borders stick out more. If you press 4 and 5 on your keyboard, you can switch between the normal mode and wireframe mode. Wireframe mode is used to see through the model and touch up things that you might not have been able to see otherwise. So with wireframe activated, number 4, we'll raise the border above the general shape. Now, we'll create the second border or detail, and we'll start with a cube as we did before. We're only going to do one of the sides. As to make the other, we just need to duplicate the one we have and place it on the other side. To duplicate the border, press Ctrl D and then move it into place. As you see, it's starting to look more like the original concept, but we're going to continue adding detail. Now we'll make the semicircle that we have on the concept by adding more edge loops to the borders. Selecting the vertices, we can move them to adjust to our reference as much as possible. You need to rotate the model constantly to see the general shape, and you also need to keep observing the reference to make sure that everything is going well. If you see something that's not quite right, this is the time to fix it. Now we make the straps that close the book. Create another cube and place it where the strap is. Adjust the size to the size we want and carry on adding details from here. Delete the face we don't need and separate the two sides of the straps, making an edge in the middle. Then, select the faces you want and holding down Shift plus right-click, select Extract Faces to have the two straps separated and be able to place one on top of the other. Now extrude the edge to make it a bit bigger and place the strap on top of the other. Then select all the corners of one side and extrude to give the strap an edge. Finally, holding down Shift plus right-click, press Fill Hole to cover up the hole that's left. With the Multicut tool, we'll join all the vertices that don't have corners between them. This is a quick way of covering up holes like this and creating a closed geometric shape. So when we extrude it, the faces have turned the other way. Right now the normal view of the polygon is facing inwards, so the polygons have their back to us, which is why they're black. We need to place them facing the other way. For that, we'll use the Reverse tool. Now we're going to make a torus. A torus is like a donut, and with this we can get a kind of cube with a hole in the middle, which we'll use to make our buckle. If we go to the menu on the right, we can reduce the number of faces to 4, so we get this kind of cube with a hole in it and put it in place. We'll scale it and rotate it until we get it how we like, following the concept. Now to make the clasp of the buckle, we'll start with a cube which we'll simply make longer and place it more or less where it needs to go. We'll make an edge loop and move the faces towards the buckle to create the shape. Now let's make the pins for the buckle, as we see in the reference. Select a sphere and delete half of the faces, so now we have a semi-sphere. Now scale it down to squash it and we get something that looks like a pin or a nail. Following the concept, we'll also make the ribs in the leather, adding a horizontal loop and moving the vertices backwards. Then adjust the vertices until you get it how you like. It's important to constantly check that nothing is spilling out from anywhere and that all the vertices are more or less in place. Now we'll duplicate the strap and place it below so we get the two straps we see in the reference. To do the eye, select a sphere and place it where it is on the concept. This is just the general shape. Let's make this ribbon here on the book using a plane. Remove all the faces and make it the same size as the concept. Then we can add corners to give it the volume we want. Move the edges backwards and forwards to adjust the volume so we get close to the reference, adding the necessary loops. Now we'll adjust the borders of the books so we can add the pages. For that, we'll create a border and extrude the edges. Once we have that, just place a cube of about the same size as the book inside the book and adjust the volume of the cube to fit in the book. This is the volume of the pages. Finally, we'll add some thickness to the edges of the book cover, like in the concept. How do we do that? By adding an edge loop the same size as the concept and then extruding the faces inside the loop. It's important to adjust the vertices before extruding the faces. Okay, once all this is done, the low poly blocking of our book is done. The next step is to take it to ZBrush. Go to File, Export, and select where you want to save it, saving it in OBJ format. It needs to be OBJ, otherwise ZBrush won't let us import it. So that's the first lesson of our course finished. I hope you find it interesting so far, and I'll see you in the next video.